Welcome.
Let me do my thing. Okay.
Do it.
Hey, welcome to the North Idaho Experience, a podcast of, by, and for the people of North Idaho and those who are North Idaho curious. Hey, listen, these are the stories and the businesses of the incredible people that choose to call North Idaho home. If you are thinking about making North Idaho your home, give our real estate team a call, text, or email info@nidexperience.com. Cara Chase, welcome to the show.
Thank you for
having me. We go
me.
way back. Actually, your husband, Andy, has been on the podcast. We talked about twice. Yeah. Well, that was the other one.
Oh,
yeah. I've done 2 different podcasts with him. Okay. If you find Copy That Radio, if you get out in the ecosphere out there and look for Copy That Radio, that's an old podcast I had with another buddy. Andy was on that one too. That was a little bit more graphic, so that was a good one.
I bet.
Yeah. But anyway, I wore a special T-shirt for the occasion.
Oh no.
Yep, no, it's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
You missed.
Yeah. So if
Love
you're not looking at us on video, I have a T-shirt that has Trump with 2 middle fingers up, and it says, "You missed." And it's appropriate because that's kind of how this conversation got started with having Cara come on here, because she used to be a Fed.
And if that offends you, please hang out for the whole hour so that we can find what else offends you. That would be awesome.
We're just getting started.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here we go.
So, yeah, we started talking. There was the infamous video of the woman Secret Service, maybe, was she, I don't know, Homeland Security, whatever she was. We don't know. Mishandling a firearm. It was terrible. She was flagging the crowd. She was doing all sorts of stuff, and everybody got fired up. Like, should women even be a Fed or in law enforcement? That question got thrown out quite a bit.
Yeah.
So figured we would talk about that. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very interesting, unfortunate, on many levels.
Is that how they trained you guys back in the day?
No.
No? Really?
No. Shocking. The whole time I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So yeah, I was one of those people that started as a special agent right out of college. I got picked up at 22 years old. And
is that hard to get picked up as a Fed? I always assumed it was a higher level of, like, I'm pretty sure I would not have gotten picked up when I was 22. I had to have a few more years.
You got picked up by the Feds.
Yeah,
right.
maybe that would have probably been more likely. Yes.
Semantics are important. So no, actually, what was really interesting, the last year and a half of college, I had an internship. So I was one of 40 students around the whole country that was selected for this internship program.
Dang.
So it was like a year and a half long job interview. And it was for the former U.S. Customs Service, which no longer exists, as we know.
Okay.
So I got picked up by U.S. Customs right after I graduated, went to the academy, which was in Fletsey, Georgia, if you know where that is, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Georgia for 5 months, 6 days a week was...
Good times.
Good times.
Yeah.
So I was out of San Diego. Fun fact, Andy and I were actually married and together before we were both agents.
I did not know that. I assumed you met on the job.
Huh. Most people assume that. No, we grew up in the same little town in San Diego, and I met him through my older brother. Not that this is a podcast about my relationship with my husband, but we were together before we were both agents. I got picked up. I went to the academy. I was home 2 weeks, and they sent him.
So you have seniority on him is what I'm getting. Yeah, I like it.
That would just run the house, right? Oh, God. Probie.
Yeah, he's going to listen to this and be like, oh, yeah, okay. Thanks, Seth. So I came back, and what I really loved about U.S. Customs was that it was anything and everything that crossed the border except for people. That was the old INS, Immigration Naturalization Service. So it was drugs and guns and finances, financial and fraud, import fraud, all, everything. And I already knew that I was somebody that gets bored very easily. So the idea of getting to jump around to different investigative areas was appealing to me. So back up a little bit with the whole Fed thing. So the misnomer that happens all the time is people automatically assume Fed means FBI, which is understandable.
100%.
Yep.
Right. So a special agent is a general schedule. GS 1811 is the job series. And every single federal agency has special agents. They're tasked with investigating the crimes or the laws that that agency has jurisdiction over. Okay. So a special agent for the DEA, for IRS, for now Homeland Security, FBI, Secret Service, it's all the same job description. The difference is what kinds of investigations are they doing.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So they kind of got their hands in everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
where'd you start? What state were you working in when you started?
I was always in San Diego.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
On the border down there working?
Yeah, I did several different things. So there's a couple different offices in the San Diego area. Most of the time that I was an agent, I was in for 10 years. I did what is now known as counter-proliferation investigations, which is keeping other countries from getting our technology, munitions, armed export stuff, military stuff. We can go into that if you want to.
I don't even know where you would start with keeping them from getting that.
That's like a very interesting chunk of the conversation
How's that
as far as
working out?
why I left. We'll come back to that. Put a pin in that. We'll circle back to that. But I also spent some time being in one of the drug interdiction border groups. San Ysidro, between San Diego and Tijuana, is the busiest land border in the entire world. So it's interesting. I was listening to your podcast that came out yesterday. I think it was yesterday, about like how do you spot
Glitch, yeah.
Yeah, how do you spot people? And let me tell you, when you see 1 million cars a day go through, you get to know real quick what stands out, what doesn't.
Yeah, the body language.
Oh my gosh,
and it's
all of it.
It's funny because it's sometimes counterintuitive, right? Like maybe they're looking at you too much, you know,
Right.
like instead of just not looking at you at all, right?
Right.
It's weird, but
There's so much to it. And then I also spent a couple years doing the child exploitation investigations. So
Oh, wow.
I've done a little bit of everything. The benefit for me is I did those investigations before Andy and I had kids. So, and I only did it for a couple years, and he did it for much, much longer than that. So I did a little bit of everything, but the bulk of my time I spent doing investigations against companies trying to send things overseas that they were not supposed to.
Really?
China, probably number one.
Yep.
So is that how they got the gravitic propulsion that we talked about with the general one the other day?
Well, you know, what's really interesting about China is they tend to...
You didn't ask me what gravitic propulsion was.
I didn't, or
No,
he didn't?
you didn't.
Because I already know.
Oh, Jesus. What's happening?
Right? So what's really interesting about China, and I don't know in the last couple of years, because obviously I've been out of investigations for a long time at this point, but at the time that I was doing it, they weren't known for creating their own technologies. They were really good at stealing other people's and reverse engineering. So that was typically how that happens for that particular country. Again, I don't know how that's changed in the last decade or so.
So when you said, things going between countries, were you dealing with mostly exports to other countries or imports?
So exports.
Okay.
The import side is where you see things like fraud.
Okay.
That customs also had jurisdiction over. So you would see things, intellectual property rights stuff, or saying something is 100% cotton and it's not. All of those like trade tariffs crossing the border type stuff. Yeah.
So when you talk about exports, what type of things were you trying to keep from going to other countries? Is there like examples or something?
Yeah. We'll just get into like the couple of the big cases that I did, obviously with leaving some details out.
No, you can give them all.
Yeah, sure.
This is a.
How about new?
Yeah,
Fine.
It's a good platform for it.
Right. So there are two entities that regulate the laws as far as exports. There's Department of Commerce and there's Department of State. Department of Commerce regulates dual-use items. So that means any items that can have both a military and a civilian use, okay? Department of State regulates military use only. There is no other civilian application, nothing for this, other than a military use. So the group that I was in, we investigated either or, right? So I'm fresh out of the academy. I'm like almost 23 at this point, you know, and I'm like, here we
Get your little
go.
Suit on.
That was a shit show at 23.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I had my
you.
like
Me too.
Ann Taylor suit and my, you know, all the things. It was great. I thought I was going to make a difference in the world. And so I'm doing some preliminary stuff, and I come across a very well-known defense contractor who is selling a product overseas to the Middle Eastern area. And this product is on the forefront of, shall we say, unpiloted things. And I notice that they're doing that using an expired license. So if you are above board and you have the government's okay to be selling things that fall under Department of State or Department of Commerce, you have to have a license to do it.
Okay.
Because they want to know what's happening.
Right.
Well, they were using a license that had been expired for like 15 years. So I remember thinking like, this is like, holy cow, I'm doing this right out of the academy. I take it to my supervisor. I'm like, check this out. And it was like, don't bother.
Hey, hunters and fellow meat eaters, do you want 100% success rate of putting meat in your freezer this year? Then buy beef from Acme Acres. It's pasture-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished, no hormones, no antibiotics, just delicious, clean, all-American beef raised right here in North Idaho. Order right off the website or give them a call to get going on your custom cut sheet. And if you buy a whole beef, you get a free freezer. Acme Acres.
Like, what? You know, and I'm 23, like, what do you mean? And it was just kind of like, yeah, that's not going to go. Don't bother. I'm like, okay. And this is probably, you know, I don't know how you would rank them, but it's a very big, well-known defense contractor.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, not going to happen. I'm
Just
like,
the way business is done, huh?
right. I'm like, okay. So, you know, I start digging into other things, and I find a company in San Diego that is a Chinese-owned company, and they are selling underwater modems. They're a Chinese company. They're manufactured in the U.S., but they're sending these underwater modems back to China and surrounding areas. So
Seems like a pretty specific tool for a pretty specific job.
well, and it could have a civilian use or military use.
I can't think of any reason that I would use that, but maybe.
So I send this all off to Department of Commerce for a determination to say, is this illegal for them to be doing this?
Department of Congress?
Commerce.
Commerce. Hearing things I want to hear.
Right.
Not what I'm actually hearing. All right.
Saying like, is this illegal? Is this actually like, do we have something here? They said, yes. Okay. So it was, I'm not even kidding you, a year and a half, almost 2 years of dumpster diving, putting together shredded documents, like all the things. And at the end of it, we served the search warrant. We got all the documents. You know, they were piled in my office like a, you know, bad movie, and start going through things. And I find what I needed. I send it off again to Department of Commerce, because every time you do it, you have to get the determination for a search warrant. And then if you find anything, you have to get another determination to say, yes, okay, really, yes. The second determination, they came back and said, which means nobody's going to prosecute it. The Assistant U.S. Attorney's Office, if the Department of Commerce comes back the second time and says, we're not so sure if this is okay or not. Wow. So like 2 years of my life and dumpster diving with, you know, leftover ramen and cat litter and diapers.
Holy smokes.
You know, I'm like, cool.
That has to take the wind out of your sails a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
That wasn't in your Ann Taylor suit, though, right?
No.
Okay.
No. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Good.
I like it.
That's good to know.
So, third case that I did, I'm like, okay.
We're not doing well so far.
Right. Batting
Okay.
not
Yeah.
1,000.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So if they're not interested in the big dogs and they're not interested in anything that's not military use, I'm gonna figure this out. So I find a company that's on the East Coast that buys all the leftover military stuff that the military like sells off, They're called DRMOs, DRMO. I cannot remember what that stands for, some military acronym. But they sell off all the old equipment and whatever.
Is that how like some SWAT teams end up with, like an AMRAP or something?
Possibly.
Is it through that that DRMO sounds familiar to me.
That seems likely. So this company was buying all sorts of stuff. And at the time, there were only 2 countries in the world that used F-14s. What were they?
U.S. and
Russia?
Britain?
Iran.
I would not have guessed that.
So
of course.
I'm thinking I'm lining this up perfectly. Like I've got a single use. I've got, there's no other explanation other than the U.S. and this other country. And so I set this all up. I'm not going to go into like investigative techniques. Needless to say, we intercepted a package that was supposed to be going overseas. And right on the side of this box was a giant orange sticker that said F-14. So I'm thinking, because, when you prove a crime, you've got to prove knowledge, intent, all of those elements of the crime. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
They stamp the side of it for you?
I cannot miss with this. I can't miss. So I fly out with my whole team. I interviewed 16 people in one day.
Gosh.
I thought my brain was going to leak out of my ears. And get everything together, present it to the AOSA's office, and they declined to prosecute because he didn't want to put a little old lady on the stand who had been the one responsible for signing off on it.
So
this is 6 years into my career, and I'm thinking, what am I doing?
yeah.
Wow.
And does anybody really care that this is happening? That this is at what point do they care? And by that time, I was like, fuck this. Sorry, Bob. But what am I doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
That's like, so 6 years in. Yeah, that's about in cops, it's like the 5-year slump.
Yeah.
You hit that right about that same time frame.
Right.
And you're like, I thought I was going to come in and change the world, right? And I'm realizing that I'm not changing anything.
This
I'm
is not like the
fighting
movies.
a rising tide.
Well, this is where, the government and these agencies bank on people like you, right? You have the heart of gold where you want to come in and you want to change. I mean, you look at all the pamphlets and you're like, man, I want to change the world.
Dun, dun, dun,
I'm going to go do
dun.
that. And then you get in there and you start to be aggressive and they go,
can
pull
you
back.
not? Can
What?
you not?
Yep.
We don't do that here.
10 years later, you're like, why am I even grabbing
Why
this
am I
guy's
doing
meth? Why
this?
don't I just freaking smash the meth pipe and be like, have a good day?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
What's
to
the
court.
point?
I'm going to get berated.
Yep.
Yeah, so I get it.
I think the only investigative area I did that I didn't feel that way about was the child exploitation, because you have an actual victim that is not the same as you're protecting the public.
Now, this sounds outside of your realm because you said things that come across that are not people. So how does that fall in?
So
Good catch, Dave.
nice,
paying
and
attention.
I am
Yeah.
happy to explain it to you. So anything that and everything that crosses the border, when you hit enter to send pictures of child exploitation, that's crossing a virtual border.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. I've known a few people, including your husband, who have done that job. That job takes a toll like nothing else. I am so thankful that people do it.
Yeah.
Right? But
Yeah.
I don't know how.
If you can't compartmentalize, you're done.
Yeah.
I know agents that have straight up said, I will not do these investigations. I cannot, and I will not. And what do you have to respect
Well,
that.
it's so deep. People don't realize, I tell people all the time, don't forget, I know that it happened when we had the University of Idaho, issue that happened down there, right? And everybody's praying for the families and everything else, which you should. And I threw out there, I was like, hey, pray for these law enforcement officers and people that have to go investigate this, because you have no idea all those charges you see, right? When you see, sexual exploitation of a minor.
Yep.
Some person has to
Had
sit
to
down
review
and
that.
validate not just part of it, but the whole thing. And if you think that doesn't mess with your mind, so child exploitation, I'm same with Seth. I'm glad people like you exist that were able to do it. But man, when I was a cop and somebody's like, oh, my daughter has been sending these nude photos. She's 12 and she's sending them to this guy. Let me send you the evidence. I'm like, nope, here, I'm going to give you the investigation guy. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to see it. I
Yeah.
don't even want to be subject
Yeah.
to it.
Right.
I'll write the report and let the one person deal with it, which, God, I don't know how
the
they
thing
do.
that was always hardest for me is, as an investigator, you have to write a report of investigation, and it's very clinical and it's very just the facts and all of that. But when you put together an affidavit for a criminal complaint and you have to describe,
Right.
Dude.
it is for me, and there are different things that are the worst part for each individual. For me, that was the hardest thing, was having to describe the worst images for the criminal counts.
Yeah.
In writing.
It just feels gross. I would have the hardest time getting the images out of my head, right? I can remember a detail from every single fatal I've ever been to. And I know in that, and I'm like, I don't want
Yep.
that in my head in any way,
Yeah.
ever.
Yep. You do reset. I noticed that after I left and Andy was still in the job, and we had moved to a new city, and we had only ever been around our people, and I left the job. I became an agent's wife instead of Agent Chase #1, which was a whole
Yeah.
very difficult thing for me and my ego. And, we'd go out and network with people and meet people, and he would just start talking like it's,
Oh yeah.
and I'm like, Andy, you can't talk to people about these cases or this would, like,
No way.
normal people,
Oh, yeah.
they don't
No
want to
way.
know. They don't want to know. They don't, you
Yeah.
can't.
Well, that's
you just
like
can't.
my wife for years. She would laugh. People would ask, like, "Are you nervous about your husband going to work?" She's like, "No, he goes and sits in a recliner."
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the image that I'd give.
Sure.
Right? I didn't come home and be like, "Hey, let me tell you about this."
Right.
Like, that wasn't what I loved it. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to throw names out there, but there was a video that I showed her. Somebody talking to a cop, and I'm like, this is why I can't have normal conversations with you, right? Because the girl's talking to him, she's like, no, I didn't do that. I mean, that's how I make money, is I show people my butthole. And I'm like, these are the
Clearly.
conversations you have
All
with
the-
people
Yeah, all the time.
when you're on duty.
Right.
And then I come home and I'm like, I don't know how to have a normal conversation.
No, because you have this like dark sense of humor that you
Yes.
have to be able
Yeah.
to deal with it.
Yeah.
And most people cannot
I
deal
just
with
said
that.
butthole on
You
a
did.
podcast.
Yes.
It's okay.
I'm going to
alright.
keep apologizing to Bob for you.
It's okay. It's real talk, man. People
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember one Thanksgiving, like I was like baby cop, and my aunt was like, "Oh, tell us some stories," and I was like, "Okay." And 5 minutes later, I look up and she's crying, and I was like, "Oh man." Yeah,
That was
I
the
learned right then.
wrong
You don't
thing
really
to
want to
do.
know. You know, you always get the person like, "Tell me the craziest shit you ever saw." I'm
Yeah.
like, "You don't want."
No, you don't.
I
Don't
will
want
not.
that.
No, I will not.
I've told my wife, I'm like, when Seth and I get in a car, we had one day where we had to drive up to Sandpoint together.
We
and
got
like
to
we
drive
we
up to
got
Sandpoint.
to.
Thank you.
And it was therapeutic, right? Because it's almost like you want to tell them, like, let me tell you the
Yeah.
grossest thing I've seen because I just got to get it
Yeah.
out.
Right,
and-
because you'll get it.
You know, I've seen it and I can handle it, right? And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic
and then
to
I
talk
go-
to people that have seen
Right.
the stuff you've
I
seen.
go cry
Right.
myself to sleep in the fetal position.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, and Andy and I have talked about how, like, I don't want to say like how lucky he is, whatever, but the fact that I know exactly how he feels, what he's looked at, what he has to do, you know, even though I don't necessarily want to hear about it all the time because I've reset to like sort of normal human being, at least as far as that, not having to compartmentalize that on a constant basis.
Yep.
Stop it.
You hang out with us way
I
too
know.
much to be normal.
Very true. But when he's having a bad day or he's having, you know, I can just tell, like, oh, it's been
Yeah.
a day, and it's like, and I know exactly how that feels and what he needs.
I avoid it now. You know, if I have a buddy that's still working and they're like, "Oh, let me show you this picture from
Yeah.
a fatal," or tell me this thing about a dead kid. I'm like, no, I don't give me
wanna
any
see that
detail.
anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
out. I'm out, and I think I've hit that point. It's been, you know,
That's what I
4 or
mean
5
about
years.
like you reset a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we go back to something we talked about at the beginning? Because I want to get your take on this. Is the Trump assassination
Oh,
attempt?
yes.
Okay, because so for those of you that are watching it, and my background, I was only in law enforcement for 2 years. Okay. Started at an elderly age of 36, right? But here's what I can tell people, and it benefits me because I never, was specialty SWAT or anything else. I was a patrol officer, right? So my training for the most part was basic training.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so when I saw all that stuff happening, and this wasn't a guy or girl thing, for me it was keyed in on training, and you can validate this.
Yes.
And that's what I'm looking for. Is when I saw that officer, I don't care about the fact she couldn't holster it.
She was a lefty.
Whatever.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
whoa, I'm a lefty.
That's fine. I'm just saying.
I can holster my gun.
Maybe that was the issue.
Wrong-handed.
That wasn't actually what got me, her trying to holster it. What got me, when I looked at it, like I said, being a basic patrol officer, right? I've only been to a basic patrol academy, the range, I've done my stuff. I only know one way to do things, and that's through that academy, right? So I'll tell you that just going through that academy, only knowing a little bit, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a sniper, I'm not anything else. There was one thing that got ingrained in me that even to today, if you give me a handgun, I'm not going to muzzle you.
Right.
I'm not going to muzzle anybody. Putting it back in might be a little difficult. That's not like a tactical
you got a suit
thing,
jacket
right?
on, and you got,
Yeah,
whatever.
I could care less about that.
Taylor.
But when the vehicle was backing up and that person was backing up, they had their gun like this, and they were literally pointing it at the crowd.
bad.
And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I only have basic training, right? I know
That's a hard no.
that's not a person that's been through basic training, because there's no way in hell, whether I'm in the black or not, that I'm going to be like this walking away. I'm going to be in a position that I'm comfortable with.
Or they've been through basic training, but they were passed.
Oh, yeah.
That happens, men and women. So the first year I was an agent was an election year. So what happens every single election year is Secret Service has to pull special agents from other agencies.
Why is that?
Because there are so many more assets to protect as far as nominees and families and whatever. They don't inherently in their agency have enough manpower. They don't have enough bodies to put on the bodies. So that's very common in an election year. And it's always been that way. That's nothing new.
But with the front runner?
We'll get there.
Okay, let's go.
So I was out on Bush Carry 2003 for the 2004. It's all kind of the years kind of blend together as far as when they start going out and campaigning and all of that. So my experience was Secret Service had their own deal. They have their command center. They have all the radios. They have, all of that. And you show up as a body to fill in. Right? There is no I'm going to be in charge of anything. It was not my experience that they put anybody from other agencies in charge of anything. And it was, here's your radio, watch the magnetometer, look for anything that's, suspicious, out of place, be an investigator,
What did you just say? Magnetometer?
The magnetometer. Metal detector.
Oh, okay. Got it. I've never heard it called that. I didn't know what that was. I'm like, it's like a special thing.
Something to do with
got it. Watch the magnetometer.
propulsion. Pretty sure.
There it is. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So it sounds like something off The Simpsons,
just basic
right? Magnetometer.
Yeah, basic, literally bodies filling.
Right.
Okay.
You stand your post, stand your position, watch this thing, be an investigator, look for anything that's out of the ordinary. Here's your radio. Here's what channel we're on. Go.
Got it.
That's it. Right?
So maybe this particular woman we're talking about, she was in that role and then somehow ended up a little too close to the action.
Right. So one of the things, the only person, in my opinion, worth listening to as far as the breakdown of what happened is Dan Bongino.
So not us? Okay. Just clarifying.
So Dan Bongino was a Secret Service agent.
Okay.
So he is of all the commentators that immediately started with the clickbaity, this is why women shouldn't be in law enforcement, and
That's
my God,
literally
all
the
that.
thumbnail I was going to use for this podcast episode.
Right.
So I'm going to change that. Never mind.
Oh, man, that's going to fire people up.
yeah.
Disagree with that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Disagree. He's the only one that actually has the knowledge, training, and experience to know exactly the lay of the land, what was happening. And if you'll notice, if you go back and listen to what people were putting out at the time as far as their opinions and comments, he was the only one that didn't make it about her being a woman.
Good.
Period.
You shouldn't have.
Right.
Right. So my take is if you can't do the job and you are not trained, you should not be there. And it wasn't just her. There was also the whole conversation about the female agent who was much, much, much shorter than Trump being in front of him with the famous photo, and she's kind of crouching down in front of him. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If you don't have the stature to be in front of the protectee, you should not be there, no matter what gender you are.
I mean, thankfully it made for a really iconic picture.
It did. But there was talk about that as well. Like, why is this short female agent?
So Dave couldn't do it.
Dave could not do it.
Maybe if you got on Eric's shoulders, then two of you could be like.
Thank
there
you.
was a
Thank
really
you, Seth.
short
Continue.
protectee. Yes.
Actually, yeah. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, and here's the thing, and this is what got me a little fired up about it, is I was one of 30 agents in a 300 agent office that was a woman. So whatever percentage
10%.
that is. 10%.
Dave's good with math.
Yes, I'm not. That was not in my basic training at all. So you've got people that are fantastic agents, middle of the road agents, shitty agents, right? And it's that way for every job industry.
Everyone.
Yep. So when a guy would screw up, or he was the guy that was known for never showing up or not being supportive as far as manpower, or did something really dumb, or, whatever, it was always about the individual. Like, oh, that's so-and-so, he's just whatever, right? When a woman does something like that in law enforcement, it's
Oh, I see.
This is why a woman should not do this job.
Yep.
So,
So basically, it's kind of like you would get hit when other people would fail at their job versus Seth fails at his job, I'm not getting hit on it.
Nobody talks about the dude who should have retired 10 years ago, is 100 pounds overweight, has an alcohol problem, and is on his third divorce and never shows up.
I can name like 12 of those right now.
I think I know that guy.
Right? I think we all know that guy.
Huh?
Nobody talks about that being like, this is why this category of people shouldn't be in this job. They talk about that individual versus, a woman doing something really stupid or, whatever it is, or being poorly trained, not taking it upon herself to make sure her skills are on point and she knows what she's doing and she's going to go home at night and not hurt anybody else. They don't talk about her as an individual. They have this whole conversation about women.
Yeah, it's not Cara, it's women.
Yes.
That makes sense.
The bar is so much higher as far as making sure that you don't give anybody a reason to question why you should be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I personally worked with some amazing female law enforcement, even on the riot line where you would not necessarily expect it, but killer. Yeah. Great people.
Yeah.
Did you work with great men too? Just wondering.
Yeah, yes, I did.
See?
Yeah. Why you have to go there, Dave?
No, that is true. I've never thought about that, right? You categorize things like that.
You do. And you're right. And I would say inherently, I think I definitely am guilty of, giving men more leeway.
Well,
not going there, right? Like,
well, you don't immediately go there because there are industries that naturally lend themselves to either gender. You're going to have more men in law enforcement, first responder, construction, that's just like you have more women that are nurses or teachers or whatever. There's an inherent makeup of your DNA and who you are that in general will lend. I know you want to say it. Don't say it. You can. It's your podcast.
I'm like, are you saying that a man and a woman are inherently different?
I am.
Oh boy,
100%.
You blew the internet.
You're right, though. I mean,
Right?
the skeletal
It is
structure
true.
of a man is generally larger, and
It's not just that. It's there's generalizations about the way you're wired, the way you think, the way whatever.
right. Women are more natural nurturers, except for my wife, but. I'm jealous. She knows it. She knows it.
And so what's interesting is as long as everybody is safe and well trained, nobody's going to get hurt. Whatever. Women have a very interesting role in law enforcement that isn't actually talked about very much, which is
Homewrecker? Oh, okay. Just checking. Oh, shit. Oh, just kidding. Wow. Just kidding. Wow. Oh, I got myself. That was a little much. That was a little much even for me.
I think there's a couple stories in there.
We're full of jokes right now. All right.
I've worked with a few.
So,
A few. Well, that's a whole nother conversation about working with your
probably
spouse.
worked with more dude home wreckers than. So there you go.
There's both.
Yeah, there's both.
Yeah.
okay. So, anyways, you were saying.
Anyways,
sorry,
what was it? Oh, okay.
Shattered that.
So you're doing. Say you're serving a search warrant, right? You've got to be a robot. You have got to be on point. It is all about what's right in front of you and whatever. So you go in, you go through the house. You got to make everything safe and secure. Put people in cuffs, whatever. But then, what's the very next thing you have to do?
High five.
Bring it down.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What's you?
You have to de-escalate.
Right.
Yeah.
What happens when you have a woman who's screaming and kids crying? And you've got, all of this kind of stuff. And very, very often, I was the only woman in the stack. And when the older guys, or when I was brand new, not wearing an Ann Taylor suit on a search warrant.
Ann Taylor Tactical.
Right? Oh, God. Business idea. No. The guys would once everything was done and we were having to de-escalate and figure out what's what and situate, they would kind of like shove me towards if there was a woman in the house.
Right.
And for the first couple of years, I really resented it. It was like, oh, just because I'm, the only woman in the stack, I've got to take it. And I don't know anything about kids. I don't know anything, I really, I resented it in a lot of ways. But what I came to realize over the years was like, I am so much better suited to de-escalate this situation and this scenario than maybe some of the other guys that are here.
100%.
Yeah.
So
And usually those situations you're dealing with, it's just a thing when you guys go in on that and there's a man that's arrested. A lot of times in that relationship, there's a lot of domestic violence. There's a lot of lack of trust in men. So you put somebody that looks like that person's husband in front of them saying, hey, just calm down. We got you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable for that woman at all.
Right. There's another interesting scenario that happens all the time when you serve warrants, particularly in the child exploitation realm. A lot of these guys, obviously, they have significant mental issues, but they're very beta. They're not alpha guys.
Interesting.
And an alpha type guy coming in to do an interview after everything is done, whatever, it doesn't always go very well unless that officer can pretend, right? If they can pretend to not be who they are and whatever. So the amount of interviews that I've done with that particular investigative area where they talked to me versus some other dude.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's very interesting. So I wouldn't generalize this for law enforcement across the board, but when you're talking about investigative areas and some of those scenarios where you're serving warrants and getting evidence and all of that, if you have the baseline of everybody's got to be able to do their job well and safely and be well trained, having women in that scenario brings a different layer to it that is so extremely helpful.
It is funny too, especially when tensions are high and you're in a stack or you're there and you're there when everything's really, really high before you can calm everything down. A lot of times somebody just gets your number and they just don't like you.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I've had that before. I've been offended where I've tried to talk to somebody and they just hate my guts.
Nope.
And then Seth comes in and talks to them and they're super happy. And I'm like, what the?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
never know.
And I've done the same thing before because sometimes people just need to focus on one person and they're like, you're the reason for all my problems. Fine, I'll talk to her.
Yep.
You see it happen all the time in law
All the
enforcement.
time. All the
You're
time.
like, all right, well, talk to them.
So when all of that happened with the assassination attempt and immediately everything was blowing up with people nitpicking and Monday morning quarterback, every video, everything, what was disappointing for me is all of these more conservative commentators immediately jumped on the "this is why women shouldn't do this" bandwagon.
Like the DEI thing.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation as far as DEI hiring practices, and that has been going on for decades. This is nothing new.
Right.
Actually, they've just stopped pretending that they're not in the last few years. So it was disappointing for me from I really liked this guy, and he has no idea what he's talking about. So all of these commentators' opinion, I don't want to throw out names, but like they wear skinny jeans and they've never had an adrenaline dump in their life, and they've never been in a scenario where you don't actually know what you're going to do until you're in it.
You had me at skinny jeans.
Right.
Say no more.
Right. So it was like, well, they're just as bad as the other side of the aisle with all of their like clickbaity and, you know, opinions and whatever. And Dan Bongino was the only one that didn't fall prey to any of it. And it's because he's actually been there and he knows what he's talking about. So that was the only one that I was like, I could actually listen to what this guy has to say about it.
It's hard when people aren't individualized like that too,
Yep.
right? Because I mean, when it's dark and you are doing something together, there's no male, female. It's like, I need you to perform,
Yep.
right?
Is your hand on my shoulder? Are we good to go?
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
And that totally makes sense. I think the only time it didn't matter is when I started calling for backup on something, and everybody that I called was a 98 pounds. One a male, one a female, and I'm like, can I get somebody that weighs more than me?
My goodness.
Please? That's who I'm calling.
My goodness.
That's what I need. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the exact same
I need a
scenario
cover
on a
officer
traffic
that is
stop.
over 200 pounds.
Yep. Yep.
You'll understand when they get here.
Right. Right.
Goodness.
I had the exact same scenario, dude. I pulled over this car like gangbangers, and they were enormous. And I'm like, there's
Not
definitely a gun
today.
in this car, and I took
Not today.
3 of them to jail.
Oh my gosh.
But they sent first, they dispatch a smaller woman, and I'm like, okay, give me one more unit. Everybody's like, why are you asking for another? And then they send this like tiny dude,
Yes.
who's like really naive, and I'm like, all right.
Can we not?
Then I get on the cell phone, like, yo, Sam,
dude, I mean,
Sam,
Don't
need
say
you-
this
yeah, I
over
don't
the
wanna- I don't
radio.
wanna ask for
Not over the radio.
I tell the
third
story,
unit,
and Matt and Kristen, who work for PD up here, they're my friends. They both laugh about it when I tell the story, because I'm like, they're fantastic officers. I'll take them as cover on just about anything, especially deadly force. So they're fantastic.
Right.
But when I called and she answered up, and I'm like, maybe I'll take a third. And I take a third, and I'm like, come on. I had to
can't ask for a fourth.
It's
Yeah,
not
I had to
your
call my
day.
sergeant and be like, look, dude,
Not your day.
these people are fantastic, but I can't. I'm not trying to shoot this guy. I just want to. I need a little more weight.
Yeah, yeah. So the other interesting thing about that scenario, I can only speak to the training that I went through. That was, I mean, at this point, I was 2002, 2003, so it was a significant passage of time.
Yeah.
And you absolutely train to be able to holster without looking, you know, all of that kind of stuff. The difference is Secret Service, and I have not been through their training, so I cannot speak to it, but it could very well be different than what an agent from Homeland Security receives as far as training with your suit on and a jacket, you know,
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff. The other thing is, I can't speak to, I don't know if she, the one who had trouble holstering for all of, 5 seconds, but I don't know if she was from a different agency or not.
Yeah.
What you can run into is if you're used to carrying a certain way or you have a certain setup and you get to a Secret Service detail and they say, you can't wear that. Like, you have to wear the suit. It's all about how you look. And did you see the other woman who made sure to put her sunglasses on? I'm
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing?
Put them back on.
Right. So
That's just a nerve thing, I feel like.
Maybe. So if it's someone from a different agency and they're being told you have to have this setup or this gear in a certain way, that could have been part of the
Yeah.
issue as well. I don't know if
there's
that's true, but it's possible.
There's a big difference. You know, my duty gun was inch off my body, inch and a half,
Yeah.
and firmly attached on a
Right.
very stiff belt. Not a that looked like a leather holster.
Yeah.
Like, that's a hard, not an easy
when
thing to holster.
when you're
right?
a woman and it's up in your hip and you've got a
Right,
smaller weight and
angled,
all
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
it's different.
I'm just
I'll give her
surprised. I was like, man, I don't think you need to even put it away right now. You can just
not.
Yeah. We're good. We can hold weapons and be
Just don't
safe
black
with them.
hole everybody. That'd be good.
That just scares me.
That could have
It's
gone
hard.
horribly wrong.
That's hard.
I did that when I was teaching my kids how to work with guns. I had this little cheap laser and I put it on the edge of it and I'm like, turn it on. And I'm like, don't let that laser hit anything.
Yeah.
Just give them a gun. I'm like, walk around me, your sister, mom. I want you to
Right.
walk all the way around. I don't want that laser to touch anybody.
Right.
And they're like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
Makes
So
it.
you would
There you
think
go.
that would be 101. It is 101. It's a matter of whether each individual agent takes it upon themselves to build their skills.
So that's what I was going to ask is what's the continuing education, the range time and everything else, especially for Homeland Security? Because I know in law enforcement, like it was at least a month, right? You're out there and you're practicing some sort of skill with your
Not
firearm.
all departments, but yes. Yeah.
So when I I was with Homeland Security, it was once a quarter you would qualify.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty common.
Yeah, it is for federal. And they would combine your range day with defensive tactics or building entry or some other type of training. But that was once a quarter.
So 4 times a year. That's insane, right? That's a perishable skill, and it's a high risk skill. Low probability, high risk.
And
so,
citizens shoot more than that. They get out there more often,
especially in North Idaho.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's scary. We shot monthly, but there were many guys that they'd show up. They're like on duty that day, and they're like, I got calls. I gotta go. Like, just give me my ammo.
Right.
And I'll shoot at home. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
but
it's hard.
And the levels, like, you come out of the academy and you have a basic understanding of stuff, but unless you get into a specialized team,
or you take it upon yourself.
Right? You're not necessarily getting the work of, position SOOL and moving around other people as much.
Right. Yep.
Cara, how would you, and I'll classify this real quick, telling this story I've told before, but I tell people women ruin the fire service, and it's a joke, but when you understand what I'm saying.
That's the thumbnail title right there.
Yeah, women ruin the fire service, is because the fire service used to be a very cohesive unit where you were with people all the time, and in the early 2000s, more and more females joined, totally capable, doing a great job, but it separated.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden, we're building
You
stations
can't have
where
the conversations.
where people had their own room with their own TV. Now people aren't fighting over Jerry Springer at 1 o'clock.
And now you have to have a transgender bathroom in California, right? So.
Right. So it just separated. It made it to where you weren't always together, like you were showering in the same room, right? Like, But how do you think? I mean, because there's still a lot of females that are getting involved in feds, in law enforcement, everything else. What do you see from when you started? 5 years ago when you were 23, to now, what's the biggest change you've seen for females going into the service?
There's definitely the initiative of just check a box. And like I said, this has been going on for decades. I think it has increased, and they're not pretending anymore. So I saw when I was at the academy, 2002, there was a woman in our class that she couldn't qualify to save her life, and they made every accommodation to be able to pass her.
Scary.
Yeah.
So this is not anything new. But there were also guys that, like, okay, you can't do a pit stop maneuver to save your life, or you can't do that. It's like,
right.
But as a woman who cared very much about my justifying myself being in the job at the time, when you're young and you got a chip on your shoulder a little bit and you're, whatever, it made me really mad, because I was like, she's going to make it harder for every other woman because they're passing her.
Is it a matter of just not having enough bodies, or is it just a real strong push to get more females and then, more?
I think it's both. I don't think it's either. I think it's both. Law enforcement is not the, doesn't get the same gravitas that it used to.
Yeah.
It used to be 10 years ago, I'd say I'm a former special agent, and people would be like, oh, wow, cool. And now they're like, fuck you, Fed. It's a totally different thing. I know Secret Service in particular has a real problem keeping people. Because I think protection detail is really, really hard unless you're a young single guy. If you have a family, it's
you're gone all the time, huh?
So they have a real problem keeping people. So I think it's both, to answer your question.
Do you want to hear something crazy?
Of course.
Because it's hard to hire people in California, there are law enforcement agencies that are now hiring illegal aliens.
I've seen that.
It's confirmed.
Is that actually going on?
It is actually going on. I have a buddy that works CHP. He said he knows the office that some of these dudes are working in. They have to check their firearm with the sergeant when they leave at the end of their shift, because they are not allowed to possess a firearm.
Dude, I'm not saying that you're wrong. Like, I'm not, but this is one of those things where, like, even as much as I trust my friends and everything else in the source, it's almost like I almost want to go down there and say, I got to see this.
The dude that confirmed it, I trust fully. And it's shocking. They may be great people. I don't know. It just blows my mind that
great people are not
is happening, right?
Yeah.
Illegal,
weird.
right? Like, how are you going to arrest somebody and say you're doing something illegal?
So to bring this full circle, when I decided this is not what I want to do for 20 years, it was because, does anybody actually care about the laws that are on the books? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing? And I could not, I was at this point where it was like, I'm 10 years in, I'm vested in my pension, in my retirement. Like, you know, I got some good things under my belt. I have a lot of good experience. If I stay, I'm going to have to stay for 25 years. I would have been eligible at 47 years old with 25 years in.
Wow.
And that's another 15 years from now, right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Ann Taylor will have gone out of business by then. So it was decision time. Like, I'm going to have to leave now, or I have to be in this for the long haul. But I'm at this, like, I got to make a move. And the move was, I value myself, my autonomy, my life, you know, all of it, more than whatever the hell it is I'm supposed to be doing.
It's so frustrating that people that leave federal jobs, right, law enforcement, everything else, are happier away from them. And I don't want to say they get a distaste or a distrust for them, but they come out very frustrated because they went in with the intentions of changing and protecting the Constitution and upholding those rights. And they look back and they go, man, I did very little of that. Right? And it's not because you didn't want to.
Right.
It's because you were, man, you get the government involved. Like I said, if you want to slow down and be ineffective, get the government involved and get organized.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't do anything.
No.
I don't know about the get organized thing. She could probably talk to you about that a little bit.
A little bit. Prioritization, things like that.
I have 7 new apps on my phone, and I don't know what they are, Cara.
I deeply want to get into what you did after this, but we're running short on time, and I don't want to short it.
This can't be a Joe Rogan.
I don't want to short
day.
it. No, it can't.
No.
Dave, I can tell he's itching. He's got to go somewhere.
We could do a foreshadowing, and I can come
let's
back.
do that. Can you give us a teaser?
I would like to
Teaser?
because, we
wanna
didn't
have
even
you
get
come
to
back.
do whiskey
I
this
know.
time.
It was a little early.
It's 8:45 in the morning or something right now, so
You don't know what I have in my cup.
that
David.
is coffee.
Right?
I can smell it.
Yeah, no, that's mine.
No, yeah, please.
So I left in 2011. Andy got transferred up to Portland. That's when I decided to leave. It was like fresh start, leaving the town that we grew up in. We both grew up in San Diego. So it was like, yeah, I mean, we moved to a place where we did not know a single soul. None of our coworkers, you know, none of our friends, all of that. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. And it's kind of a drawn out story, so I'll save it for the next time I'm back. But the short story is I ended up becoming the social media manager for the band Megadeth and Dave Mustaine.
I mean, honestly, it seems like a very natural transition.
Obviously,
Yeah, I
like
was
who wouldn't think to do
course.
that?
Of course. I imagine you
Of
have
course
some
you did.
great stories from that
I have
that I
some
definitely
really
want to
good
know about.
stories, yes.
And for those that don't know, Cara is responsible for all of our new branding and the cohesiveness that, you know, our real estate team, our YouTube, our podcast, all of that came out of there.
But you know what's cool about it too, and we talked to you about this, the fact that we actually really love you. Like it's been really, really cool.
Even though you were a former Fed, we
Surprisingly.
don't dislike you.
Yeah, no, it's weird to get I say talked at when I'm screwing up, because we constantly get texts like, Dave, did you? I'm like,
Can you not?
But no, it's kind of neat, because that was one of the things, you know, when we hired you, I'm like, this is kind of cool because we have somebody that kind of speaks our language. Obviously you work great with our wives, and then it was nice to have somebody that can kind of call you out on stuff. So you are very sarcastic when you would like to be, and I appreciate it.
Good. I'm glad somebody does.
Are you currently looking for clients? Do you want to put your business out there? Would this be a time?
Well, I mean, currently what I focus on and am rebuilding, because I actually took almost 2 years off of my business, which is a whole nother story. But I am coming back with what I really love doing is teaching type A women how to throw the productivity rules out the window, how to put themselves first, how to put themselves back in their life, and stop doing all the, oh, the answer is time blocking. Oh, the answer is this. The answer is that. I really love coaching and helping people take control of their lives again.
There are so many female-owned businesses and entrepreneurs up here too that could benefit from that.
I think so.
It would be
I think
super
so.
cool.
I'm making sure I lay it out right. I'm being my own client with making sure it's all cohesive and all of that. The branding and marketing and social media is something that I like. I like those clients to happen organically, as it did with us, because it takes a certain type of client to follow through and not fuck it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, dude, the stuff that you did was amazing
It was
for us.
amazing.
Like even the presentations and like, hey, this is where you guys need to go. This you look like shit here. You need to do these. And I'm like,
Oh, okay.
man.
Yeah, but you
super
don't
clean.
know what you don't know.
Right.
The worst thing as a service provider is to put together an amazing strategy for a client that never implements it. That's hard, where it's like, I get, all of that. And I knew that this all takes time and practice, but I knew you guys would be able to do it, which is why I was like, okay, yes, let me help you.
Oh, we love
So
it.
you said type A women.
Yeah.
Dave's type A, but he's like 49% gay. Is that close enough?
Close enough.
Okay, so
49.
I mean, it's not a controlling interest.
Decent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It's like Congress right now.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Cara.
You're welcome.
We will have you back sometime.
I
Let's
would love
do
it.
Yeah.
Love it. Tell you all about Megadeth and my first client being Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden.
Oh my God.
And
that is-
yeah, it's
We'll have to wear
like a
t-shirts
whole
for the
nother
whole deal.
chat. It's like a different book. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It is a
Yeah.
very different book.
Yeah.
That doesn't. Yeah. Who knows? We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Cara. Cara
You're
Chase.
welcome.